Is everyone good?
Yep.
You're good? Oh, okay. Produce, black woman. Raise your kids, sweep the floor, feed the world, guard the door. Work harder, black woman. Clean the dishes, pots and pans, do the laundry, wash some drawers. Solve this problem, black woman. Vote blue, restrict Trump, get in line, catch a clue. Stay faithful and get some lumps. Create, black woman. Sing that song, hold that seat, lead them all, Tubman feet. Smile, black woman. For the culture, for the children, for the neighbors and your kin. Don't cry, black woman. Show your beauty through your pain, dry your cheeks and your ears. Use honey and you'll gain nothing nice or worldly prize. Do this and that, black woman. Where's your vein and your arm? Need your life source and cells. Close your eyes, we won't tell. Get a job, black woman. Lower your voice, cross your legs, keep your edges laid. Love me, black woman. Don't you know that I love you? Don't you understand that everything I have done has been for you? I always put you first. Why can't you do the same? Trust me, black woman. Tell me your worries. Come with me on a journey. The destination may be far, but on the way we'll show you who you are. Be grateful, black woman. Be grateful, black woman. Oh, of course, how can I not? When I think of all the world has given me, I can't but feel some type of way. Thank you so much, political participation, really. I mean, my role model is Lynn Patton because I've always wanted to be tokenized by white men up in the White House. Thank you for the commitment from our law enforcement to make sure we stay safe, though they could tone it down when it comes to my brothers and sisters because do-gooders who were all intent on keeping young black women off the streets. Even if it meant arresting every last one of them, street strollers, exhausted domestics, nocturnal creatures, wannabe chorus girls, and 2 loud colored women were arrested on whim of suspicion or likelihood. The reasons for arrest were offered: loitering, notorious, and disorderly solicitation. Who knew that being too loud or loitering was a violation of the law? Or making a date with someone you met at the club, or arranging a casual hookup, or running the streets with prostitution? Or the place where you stayed was a disorderly house and could be raided at any moment. The real offense was blackness. Your status made you a criminal. The telltale sign of a future criminality was a dark face. Oh, and let's not forget to be grateful for all the gifts that debate has given me. Like scholarships, a little money on the side to go towards school. Oh yes, how could I not? Then I realized that money ain't going right into my pocket, and girls got bills to pay, so I had to get a job. Thought it was all good, then they told me to travel to 6 to 7 tournaments a semester, which means I ain't got time to work. So I added up all the numbers and turns out I'm losing money, but hey, it's fine. I should be grateful for the scholarship, right? And let me tell you about these weekends, though. We travel all weekend and every weekend, and I should be grateful, right? All the places I get to go, sights I get to see, like sweating debaters, stale bagels, cold coffee, pizza, and coffee that's not supposed to be ice, and I've grown a taste for comparing how university classrooms differ from one another. I'm either work on these windows, but for real, the trade-off is that I don't get to go home, hang out with friends, sleep, or even do homework. But I should be grateful for the gift of fairness, right? More like the illusion of fairness. Oh, most of all, I should be thankful for the gift of topic education. That doesn't allow me to have the freedom to be or talk about what I want to talk about, and does not allow me to be free. They tell me to accept my thought, my labor, my existence, but only if I perform in a certain type of way. What the law designated as crimes were forms of life created by young black women, the modes of intimacy and alienation being fashioned in the ghetto, the refusal to labor, the forms of gathering and assembly, the practices of substance and getting over were under surveillance and targeted by the police, as well as the sociologists and the reformers who gathered the information and made the case against them, foregoing their lives into tragic biographies of poverty, crime, and pathology. The acts of wayward, the wild thoughts, reckless dreams, interminable protests, spontaneous strikes, non-participation, willfulness, and bold-faced refusal distributed the balance of need and want. Sought a line of escape from debt, duty, and the attempt to create a path elsewhere. Black women need to choose how they labor. Because in the past, too many black women have endured physical and psychological violence, even committing suicide, because they have labored for institutions, and they have labored for people who in return have given them nothing. But instead use black women's labor to get ahead in life. And I, as a black woman, have decided to live on what I need to survive, which means that I will choose when I labor. I will choose what I put my energy in. I will choose how I labor to get what I need. And debate, here's what I need. I need the ballot because I want it. I need all the irritating people, haters to go away because I just want to have a good time. And most importantly, I need to be ungovernable, however I choose. And there are a few other things I need. More money, more sleep, more TV, and I need Rihanna to drop a new album. A revolution unfolded in the city, and young black women were its vehicle. It was driven not by uplift or struggle for recognition or citizenship, but by the vision of the world that would guarantee to every human being free access to earth and full enjoyment of the necessities of life according to individual desires, tastes, and inclinations. One needs first to conceive something as unimaginable and unprecedented as two-fast girls and surplus of women and whores producing thoughts on the outside. Such a far-reaching notion of what could be were the fruit of the centuries of mutual aid. Collaboration, reciprocity, shared creation define the practices of mutual aid. It was and remains a collective practice of survival for those who benefit the notion that life, land, human, earth could be owned, traded, and made the private property of anyone, those who would never be self-possessed or envision themselves as accurate and self-interest profiteers or measure their life and worth by the ledger of the rent book or long to be the settler of the master. Mutual aid did not traffic in the belief that the self existed distinct apart from those others or who revere the ideas of individuality and sovereignty as much as it did singularity and freedom. The mutual aid society survived the Middle Passage, which flourished in the stateless societies that proceeded to the breach of the Atlantic and perdued in the wake. This form of mutual assistance was remade in the hold of the slave ship, the plantation, and the ghetto. The mutual aid society was a resource of black survival. The ongoing and the open-ended creation of new conditions of existence and improvisations of life-enhancing free association was a practice crafted in social clubs, tenements, taverns, dance halls, disorderly houses, and the streets. Produce, black woman. Work harder, black woman. Solve this problem, black woman. Create, black woman. Smile, black woman. Don't cry, black woman. Get a job, black woman. Do this and that, black woman. Love me, black woman. Be grateful, black woman. Trust me, black woman. Or nah.
Cross-legs?
Yeah.
Alright, first question. Does Josiah put an expectation on you to produce in this space?
I'm not really sure what Josiah has to do with the 1AC that I just gave.
Well, you critiquing production within debate space. We think that is a
yeah, but I also think it's a problem that you're looking over the fact that I just labored for 6 minutes and I just talked about my labor and I just talked about how I want to be free, but all you can see is the white man next to me. I think that's a problem.
Rather, I think the critique goes the other way in that the imposition of whiteness in this space is what I'm trying to get at.
No, I think that I told you in the 1AC what I wanted, and so what just Josiah wanted doesn't really matter because I told you what I wanted out of this debate. I guess
to that end, how can this debate get you more money?
How can this debate get me more money? This debate doesn't necessarily get me more money. It gets me what I said I needed, which was the ballot.
You said you needed the ballot, the haters to be gone, to be ungovernable, and to get more money.
Yes, and from the world I need more money.
Okay.
A similar related question to wanting to be ungoverned. How does this interact with the fact that in this debate round there are 3 different judges that sort of have to make at the end of the debate a decision whether or not to award a ballot to the affirmative team or the negative team? Are you, like, as the role of the judges in this debate, is it sort of positioning them to decide as an individual if you are, like, valued enough to receive the ballot, or how do they interact with the affirmative?
The judges got their role of the ballot in the 1AC. It's to give me the ballot because I want to be ungovernable. The 1AC is a wayward act. It allows me to be free.
Yeah, my question is, how is, like, the judges having to make that decision in the first place not a sort of form of governance in and of itself?
It's not really governance. It's me being free through the 1AC. I said I want the ballot. I labored. They need to pay me.
I think the Telos of the AF makes some arguments about the assumptions that underlie debate. I guess why are those pre-existing assumptions not affecting the judge's evaluation and whether or not to simply give you the ballot or to make a determination and evaluate whether or not your act was enough or your labor was sufficient?
Can you restate your question?
Yes, so there are some predispositions to debate, which you have critiqued in the 1AC. Mm-hmm. Why are those underlying assumptions about debate not going to affect the judge's ballot prior to your demand for the ballot?
I don't know why they would affect the judge's decision.
Well, you have made some claims about the way debate is already structurally biased.
Yeah, and I've also done the same again for the world.
I guess why does that bias not affect the judge's deliberation in just giving you the ballot?
I'm not sure, again, why they would affect the judge's decision.
Okay. You got anything else?
I don't think I have anything else. 10 seconds.
Bless you.
Okay. The 1NC.
How many sheets of paper will I need with me?
2.
Two case?
Yes, 2.
Yes. So we ready?
Yep.
First off, framework interpretation. The AF must defend an instrumental passage of topical policy action. Violation. The affirmative lacks a definitive policy course of action through an affirmation of the resolution. Reason to prefer. Most real world. McClellan 17. Critique is not the way forward here. We should try to push past the point where it stops and find something more to say. Unilateral conception of power is hallucination of power imposed by the system of production, and theory becomes a seductive paddle and passage or challenge. And by openly declaring the process of reappropriation, production is undermined. This strategy reverses how capitalism has made remade theory into a theory of itself on creating seductive roots of ideas, disrupting the system from within the masses, are being pushed out in the limiting of access to certain side edgeality of the certain spheres of consumption. Silent masses take away from the indifference of her. The difficulty of critique versus challenge will present itself in here. The theory must become fatal. Trans-political plot must exploit power by finding sites where a general push in the right direction is enough to bring it crashing down. The theory challenge for the masses must be find worthy sites and attempt to outbid them to the point of death for simulated campus protests. Their very chances to occupy the university abstractly to go about their elite education and become a computer virus. In this way, the virtual strategy becomes real, and the cat K. Sadie Hartman's attempt to reach into the archive repeats the very violence against blackness they uncover. Refuse this enumerated repetition of death because it recreates the mold of humanism that attempts to locate blackness as knowable object through professionalized research that turns the case and locks in anti-black violence with the level of representation. McKittrick in 14 in Hartman's Venus and True Acts returns the death of the African girls killed on the middle patch of the archive. As Hartman suggests, the death of the archival evidence with pressure on this is by affirming the noble black object token disguising it as the untold black human being. Black archive for present acts as an origin story of false that black freedom unfolds an indeterminate possibility. The trolls of death are housed in the archive affirm black death. The trolls cast black as impossibly human. The trolls repeat and cherish anti-black violence and black death. If the source of black news, death, and violence, the scholarly stories we tell call for a repetition of black death and violence, blackness originates in death. Futures are foreclosed. History present in anti-black violence is repaired by reproducing knowledge about how black subjects render them less than human. How do we then foster a commitment to acknowledge violence and undoing rather than frame rather than analytically reprising violence? This citation of forms should no longer repeat this violence. The Project Black Studies, with its history of surviving racial violence, provides commentary of the ways blackness works against the violence that defines it, and their accountability of temporality as repetition merely rewrites history as melancholic telos which face the alterity of the past. This turns to mourning and reifies faith to the lost object of Africa that results in the aestheticization of all politics and history, or so to speak, the end of art in history. Best in 12, Morrison had no doubt played a major hand in directing attention toward the slave past with Morrisonian poetics as a guide to black Atlantic recent rehabilitation of melancholy and cultural criticism, whereas mourning represents an acceptance of loss of the capacity of awakening melancholy. Marks a persistent identification with the lost object. Melancholic historicism celebrates the commitment to remain faithful to the lost object narrative. Reading sustains a feeling of loss. The absence of evidence of the absence of the past. The hypothesization of the absence of evidence of the past is never dead. It's not even past. The incident of both the song Glaucom Magnus, the recent risk capitalism production of loss of value is condition of value that continues the present narrative. Review history aims to discern structural inequities repeated in the past. For Hartman, slavery is neither to be resigned to or nor confused with the past commitment to an affecting consumption of history. Hartman solicits empathy through the assertion that time has shown no movement of promotion of feeling affirming an axiom has been transformed into a critical method. Benjamin Angel of the bearing witness to the history of pillaging reckoning upon reckoning belongs to make whole that which has been smashed. It is curious considering his own caution against melancholy of what kind of history would permit one to stay up with the dead but rouse them from their sleep. History has forgotten how much it shares with theology. Here the office of art is afford a kind of repetition that repairs inherently damaged or valueless experiences. Critics who try their authentic origin, all heedless of his sources, thought the idea that art has a redemptive function on devaluation, historical experience of art, redemptive criticism, the refusal or inability to reckon with true ulterior the past nap, reckoning how to record a fire failure or short circuiting of a redemptive function. And slavery is not under theorized there. Evidence from 25 years ago statusizes slavery as history as treating it as a haunting rather than an over-proliferation and over-theorized and over-invested in intellectual labor in a silent economy of debate which simply feeds off their construction of black identity as lack. Failure to innovate and bring about new methods of archival analysis actively stifles creative potentiality for Allen analysis, locking out of archive of history as an objective unit which can be made fully present, unauthenticated, and exposed to colonial imposition that ignores our productive possibility of lacuna, silence, and secrets of the archive which demand innovative scholarly endeavors like ours. Freeberg in 15 in playing Morrison emphasized the influence of slavery on the nation's racial unconsciousness. Literary scholars will sentiment discuss the slavery beyond Douglas' narrative. Failure or reluctance to recognize the centrality of slavery provoked Morrison's assertion that the slavery's effects have yet to be grasped. Muhammad remarked about the absence of moral memorial recognizing the slaves who died in the middle past, invoking slavery as a ghost. Gordon explains that the slavery's haunting is repressed or unresolved social violence makes it unknown. Gordon mischaracterized the agency of slavery since it's not the haunting subject but the critic who makes it unknown implicitly or explicitly on someone or something's behalf. The disclosure values history or memory for a cost, one that demands institutions and individuals publicly recognize slavery when it's previously ignored. The slavery is no longer the outlier, no longer particularly confronting and analyzing the squad. The scholars of slavery have been interrogating the indubitable presence of memories, events, and experiences related to chattel slavery. The scholars can no longer characterize slavery as a haunting representation, a repression whose subjugating knowledge awaits daylight and freedom. Slavery scholars might well abandon the rubric of repressed haunting and recent slavery's opposition on uninhabited proliferation. Recent studies demonstrate that advancing proliferation and visibility of slave texts keep the notion of slavery haunted and represses, stifles the way critics can understand the new direction that analysts of slavery are taking, not realizing haunting as outmoded critics risk misrecognizing the present mode of slavery discoursing in which critics invoke haunting for rhetorical and political effect. It obscures how the site of slavery performance demands the currency of new rubrics, historical, personal, and political, some of which are currently pursued by critics yet still need to be far further explored. And power and visibility does not function in the post-Fordist capitalism merely as repression, but also as production. The introduction of their scholarship as of refusal into the affective economy of debate is not a liberation from a capital exploitation, but the newest form of the idea of resilient subject. Presumes a Fanonian individual economy where black bodies are the property of the white psyche, which doesn't apply to multiracial white supremacist patriarchy visuality, which is neoliberal. Their performance demands that looking in public performance of trauma to assuage our past prejudices and justify globalized intervention in the name of better in the third world other who cannot perform as well as they do. That's James and 15. Resilience must become performed explicitly, objectively, and spectacularly, overcoming this type of affective labor, which, as Shapiro put it, is the only productive to the extent that it was for public performance and tuned to the resilience and feedback into the power supply. MRW, ASP is perceived as such. The gender and race have always been a visible identity to be used. Alcoff's term, however, gender racialized resilience isn't invisible to the same look I overcame is easy to juxtapose to Fanon's. BWSM 110, the black man, as Fanon argues, has no ontological resistance for the white man because as an object not mutually recognized subject, he cannot return to the white man's case. Leo narrative differs from Fanon's. Objectification isn't an ends but a means, but impediment imposed by the young drop by the white male gate is a prerequisite to subjectivity, agency, and mutual recognition. Resilience turns objectification into a means of subjectification. Also makes looking even more efficient, profitable, and so real objectification could ever be. Recognizing and affirming the affective labor of the resilient performer, the spectator feeds the performer's individual overcoming into a second order therapeutic narrative. Our prohibition of her overcoming is evidence of her own overcoming of our past prejudices. MRWASP is usually the resilience of its good girls as proof there. The good guys, the resilience of our woman is contrasted with the supposed fragility of the third world women of color. The resilience of some African American women with their bootstrap style class ascendance is contrasted to the continued fragility of other African American women used to reinforce class distinction among blacks. The conversation about third world women are as white saviors narratives meant to display MRWASP over own resilience. Look, I overcame upgrades, so I recycling of objectification into overcoming and compounding looking so that one can profit from others' resilience, treating it overcoming as one's own overcoming upgrade. Even looking case The affirmative strategy of riotous living is like a racialized drug. It doesn't fuck hegemony up, it fucks you up. Negativity and insurrectionist anarchy aren't radical. They are responses to a form of power that no longer exists. Civil, political life in the European ideology of teleological accumulation and growth are products of a transnational, traditional liberal power structures, but late capitalist neoliberalism functions as biopolitical management, which renders death not a challenge to life, but as an indirect effect of fostering privileged life. Their supposed revolt simply reifies normalized queer death and fractures subjecthood as the conceptual fuel of post-Fordist capitalism. That's James. In 14, consider the political and aesthetic function of death as a deathless negation, anarchy, or creative destruction. Foucault argues that death is an important component of sexuality precisely because it wasn't type of negation. Sexuality emerged when the right to take life was replaced by a foster life or disallowed to death. Racialized sexuality is the main instrument of which the liberalism fosters or disallows life as pertains to sexuality. Death is an negation of life, or rather a side effect. The death only appears indirectly, not as a challenge, but it's imperceptible. And what if we reframe debates around queer death, futurity, and antisociality by placing no future with delete yourself? You have no chance to win. Delete yourself describes a neoliberal biopolitical conception of death. Death as carefully administered disinvestment. The negation is only a counter-hegemonic response to the supposedly coherent anarchy of destroying is only radical if hegemony wants you to build noisy anarchy. Sounds queer and illogical only to ears tempered by a logos that privileges development. Neoliberalism doesn't care about linear progress. It does a different logic, one that co-opts classically negation, redistributing it and putting it in the service of privileged groups. The faux subversion fucks you up, not hegemony. Subverting hegemony's archy, but they do so in carefully controlled, limited ways. Knobs only go up to 10 planes of consistency within a plane of organization. The most prominent example. Mark the card an example.
Cool, are you ready?
Yes.
Starting on the T-flow, what is policy?
In what context?
Like, in the context of your T, like, we talked about, like, how we don't do policy action. What is policy?
Yeah, our argument is that policy action must be a move to drive the destruction of debate as an institution. And our argument is that by creating a policy action, you can simulate the action of policy proposals such that the investment in debate as a production of knowledge or knowledge economies is destroyed,
Okay.
meaning that debate will be
Thank
destroyed.
you. Why, I'm on the K-flow now. Why do we reach in the archive?
Yeah, well, there's a couple arguments for that. The McKittrick evidence is super specific to Hartman's articulation of the way the death sentence operates, and the second link is pretty specific on this as well. The best evidence when it talks about how, let me just go down to it. I read this before the round. When it talks about how Bocom argues that risk capitalism's predication of loss value as a condition of value continues to the present era, we say that this is describes structural inequity in a way that your AF cannot, and
Cool,
such that
thank
your
you.
bootstrap narrative
What is the role of
is.
the black woman in the multiracial white supremacist patriarchy?
I'm sorry?
What is the role of the black woman in your alt?
I don't think our alt is to be
What
multiracial
is
white
the alternative?
supremacist. The CAPK? Our argument is that refusal to engage in a politics of like bootstrap narratives.
Which piece of evidence do you think makes that claim?
The James evidence.
So James is the alternative evidence.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool, yeah. What about the one AC was overcoming?
Well, several moments. You say that you believe in it because you want to partake in demands for a ballot to get rid of the haters, to be ungovernable, and to get more money from society. We say that the ballot as liberatory potential functions as a sort of affective spectacularization which normalizes sort of parasitic feedback loops, making the performance of resiliency
Okay,
a reinforcement
cool.
of the necessity
Thank
of
you.
the AF on the judges.
How do we theorize slavery?
I'm sorry?
How do we theorize slavery?
You have read several pieces of evidence which would indicate a theorization of slavery. I can't speak to your own theorization. I guess
yeah,
that
thank you.
depends.
And then you talked about how there was a piece of evidence that was from 25 years ago. Which piece of evidence was that?
That would be Hartman's theory. It's from 1994.
So the Hartman article that was read from 2018 that is
Yes, it's the same theory from 1994.
Same theory? That's what we're going with?
Sure, if you
Okay.
can win not our Hartman, go for it.
Cool.
Excellent.
Do you have any questions? We have 14 seconds.
So your argument on T is that like topical debates destroy debate.
Our argument is that the simulation of topical debate will destroy the meaning and affect
Last
of
question:
investment
does the
debate.
K resolve the F?
No.
Okay. I'll take.
that comes out otherwise.
Either that or if you just edit it out. I think it's easier.
I'm too lazy to do editing.
Got it.
So,
It will be for the judge's case TK. I will send out the cards. I just need to put these into order.
Also, I forgot to ask before, but the 1AC I received, unless I'm just like totally wrong, was just like the sites. Is it possible we could get a doc with like the
What do you mean this? Can I see what you got?
like what I got was
Oh,
just like the site doc.
oh, fair.
I honestly just like made a note and then told you. So.
I'm just gonna put the cards in the text doc, if that's fine. Or the text.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay. And they should be in the order that they will be read. For some reason, the email has like formatted one of the cards weird, but if there's a problem, just let me know.
I also sent out the full text card. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Okay, does everybody have the cards?
Yeah.
What's the order? Case, the topicality argument, the criticism. Okay. So, okay. Are you all good?
Yeah.
Produce, black woman, work harder, black woman, to solve this problem, black woman, create, black woman, smile, black woman, don't cry, black woman, do this and do that, black woman, get a job, black woman, be grateful, black woman, love me, black woman, trust me, black woman. The world is producing coherence and sustained through the forced labor and production of black women. These demands are the very foundation on which modernity creates itself while exterminating the other. Black women are expected to produce everything, yet own nothing. These forced demands of production are not only folded in and create standards of participation in existence, they also create the conditions for criminalization and pathologization of black life. More specifically, black women's life, as Hartman indicates, all performances and expression of life that do not uphold the status quo conditions of production are then forged into biographies of poverty, crime, and pathologization. Debate functions through the same logic and rhetoric where debaters are governed and manipulated through rules of inclusion, deliberation, and community. Rather than internalizing these narratives, the one I see here is a refusal of the given and affirmation of the wayward acts that affirms Morgan's choice to be ungovernable. Black women should be able to choose how they labor, where they place their labor, and how they labor. And this is good for two reasons. First, the physical and psychological balance. And second is the mutual aid of the affirmative that allows the wayward acts to sort of unite black women in these circles. The first piece of James' evidence that the is not responsive in his verse This is not the affirmative because this is a sort of criticism of the notion of futurity and career reproduction. That's not the affirmative. Second, this is a sort of criticism of Foucault, which is not the affirmative. There's no real link to this argument or impact to it. If they sort of expand it, the block can be new. One area answer to this argument, I'll go to the T-flow now. Their focus on the executive branch is the sole cause of modern violence like nuclear war, trade wars, etc. is bad because it ignores larger structural analysis of the harms that existed before the executive branch was created and still exists after the resolution. Is that a master's move to innocence was obvious? A society that is anti-black and misogynistic. The affirmative wayward act allows the control over labor, which removes the executive in society. They don't sort of give a definition of what is policy and what that looks like. There's also no bright line. This argument will shift into we control like a hyper focus on policy debate will end debate. Our argument is that there's no distinction between the real world and debate. That's all of these sort of crossings of the one I see when they're asking why do you need the ballot? Why is different? When Morgan says I need things in the real world too that they have sort of created this decision, just getting rid of debate doesn't resolve for the affirmative. It doesn't sort of resolve for the real violence that Morgan and other black women will experience outside of this space, which means that the cases they decide to their T, especially in the context of one and T crossings, when they say that the K or the T will never resolve the affirmative, which means that the psychic violence and mutual aid of the affirmative will never be resolved. Our counter interpretation is that black women should be ungovernable. This is a better model of debate because it creates a fair model of debate because it gives black women access to the same playing field as other privileged bodies. It resolves all of their sort of limits and fairness arguments because that criminalizes black Morgan's labor, and the affirmative says some limits could be good, but that they should be decided by black women and who know their limits best. So you can sort of extend this sort of black women taking their own lives and the psychological violence effect of their 1DC to provide a sort of more in-depth education. This is a unique reason to prefer it. There's two net benefits. First is energy. If we win the uniqueness of the 1DC, then that is necessary for black women to choose the ways in which they exist and participate in both institutions and intimate spaces. This is key to resolve psychological violence that black women face that is historically led to black women committing suicide. This then becomes a reason why the affirmative is a necessary prerequisite to all of the offense that they go for. Second, collaboration. This is our internal link to liberation in the way that there's sort of black women can come together. Harmony indicates that the vision that comes as a result of black women's collaboration and mutual aid is key to collective survival and freedom. Their interpretation can never produce those intimate spaces. There's also a sort of criminalization to say that they assume that Morgan reading the affirmative in this round is what sustains debate. There's no sort of bright line of when will debate collapse. What is the sort of bright line of how many times the affirmative has to be on how many debates we have to have to sort of this. And also there's a dissent because teams like Kentucky, Harvard, and Northwestern will still all engage in that sort of over hyper policy debate, which should collapse their model, and they have no sort of bright line for this. So there's no reason to vote on this argument. The McLennan evidence indicates that it is most real world, but our argument that the real world is still anti-black debate, that Morgan will still get scripted out of these spaces inside and outside of debate, which is a reason that they can't resolve it. It doesn't have a good. There's also a labor dissent. There's sort of analysis across the board. The labor analysis from the overview. They force black women to always have to produce more and more for the sake of society, or more sort of equal participation to end debate. They force Morgan to engage and put on topical debates to end debate, which is problematic, and enforce all of that on her and say that. And then if she does not, they blame her for it. That society never gets better for them. It depletes black women's energy and why they can't engage in the state or proper debate that leads to exhaustion and suicide. All of their evidence sort of indicates there's also a haters decide. The framework is a policing mechanism. Even if they sort of read it as a sort of ending debate argument, it sort of still polices people. It says you have chosen not to engage in topic, which means that you don't collapse debate, which is violent for people, which the police is born in these spaces. This becomes a do-gooders and undercover attack that penalize black women for refusing debating and engaging in the topic. The impact is psychic. The balance to conform with the model in which will always shift, especially this is going to be uniquely cute. There's a sort of whiteness, a white shiftiness, this that they'll apply to their framing the way that they read it and the one and see, hoping that we will have a generic QAC frontline to frame it and then shift the argument to collapse debate later, which proves that how white people will always be shifty, and you should be skeptical of their two politics in this debate. The next argument will be this sort of mythology that I did about because they sort of have a universal understanding of political engagement that says that alternative modes are not that which sort of dissuades activism or engagement, which causes this psychic violence. There's no real offense in this, but if they expand it in the block, obviously give me new answers because it's all pretty new. But I'll answer some of the Baudrillard portion of the McLennan evidence. They have made arguments about how the silent economy lacks value unaffected. There's two arguments. Our argument is twofold. First, that labor and production is how that value is assigned to black women, which means that the affirmative ruptures the internal link to that and results in it disseminates violence. And second, we have an argument about how they place value on Morgan before there's any sort of interaction with her. There is a value system that already mythologizes her, which produces an affective relationship, which means that even if they are right about their theory, they can only reproduce those things interpersonally. Their theory of semiotics and semiology serves to disavow the gratuitous violence that exists against black women. I'll read the Yancey card here. The one in C is a view from nowhere that assumes a universal object and it tries to place black women within the world, which violently scrapes the blackness onto black folks in order to avoid accountability and embodied experience. Yancey 05. The embodied self is the deemed relevant to theory. It is because it is best to reason being from nowhere. Writings of authorship to speak apparently from nowhere for everyone is empowering by becoming lost in oneself to theorize the black body. The one who started the black body is the ratings for interpreting racial experience. The black body's lived realities produced the white imaginary, resulting in white efforts to do self-construction of these complex acts in a ratio of peace black people and mythification as the replacement of history with a surrogate ideology of white elevation of black denotation on a scale of community will go to the cave now. The 1AC is a better analysis of how capitalism functions by including a discussion of black women's labor. It is not about root causes, but the life source of capitalism and how it sustains itself through anti-blackness. That means that we control the uniqueness and the control over black women's labor is the internal link to the impact of capitalism. And if we win, then the affirmative resolves this, then we should win the debate. The permutation to both resolves all of their office. The affirmative provides black women with the energy to sort of engage in anti-capitalist or anti-capitalist resistance. They have no sort of a clear depiction of what the alternative is, which means that the alternative is vague and very difficult to debate this way. This sort of proves our white shiftiness instead of what the alternative actually does. James evidence doesn't outline what it means to sort of resist sort of the sign economy of debate or affective capitalism. They produce and there's also sort of double because they sort of engage in that affective capitalism. Everything is affective. There's no sort of bright line of what the affective the affirmative and what the affective the one and T. So why criminalize the Morgan's labor in these spaces? So you can cross-apply the criminalization that they made on the sort of Baudrillard arguments. You can do permutation to the affirmative and then the alternative. It resolves all of their offense and impact. The next I'll link to all of their James evidence because it assumes I'll make a smile. Black women is that the negative never allows black women's space and time to be vulnerable. It forces the black woman to always be strong and real without ever time for self-care to at least do suicide impact and always all of their impacts because they have said that they sort of look I overcame narrative is problematic because of the way that it sort of always forces black women to do that. But our argument is that black women should be able to be vulnerable in certain spaces and they criminalize her and sort of they make more force black women to always smile in these spaces. The next argument we'll go over is permutation. You do use choice is good. Morgan does not have to submit to their governance. Y'all can do whatever you want, but our argument is that Morgan should be ungovernable. Read the Harney evidence here. The starting point is speaking from the position of the object, contrary to the thesis of value that undergirds the logic of capital and drawing a capitalist esteem into incoherence. Amendment 3. The value of the commodity is doubted, the possibility of speaking as the company can speak, it would be infused with value not from the outside of the world, but contrary to the value that marks the science of the speaking commodity god, who marks the scar broken, is the scar spoken opposes the slave, material degradation to fissures that are foreclosed in the universality there, occurs in slip performances of reconstruction of value, and disruptive practice of the opposition of speech. The next argument is that the affirmative is a prerequisite to any of their politics because to engage in politics, or in the alternative requires black women to have energy engaged in the wings of the affirmative, and the mutual aid means it gives black women the sort of energy to engage in that. The next argument that they have, they also say that the 1AC is a sort of wounded attachment in the way that we sort of focus on melancholy. That's not what the 1AC is. They sort of paper over black resistance and universalize that experience to indicate it's all about the violence that they have to overcome, and rather the way that they experience violence. And control evidence is not about the Hartman article. We're not going to go for our Hartman arguments, but you sort of pathologize and sort of homogenize all of Hartman's scholarship to indicate that what she is regarded. The affirmative is obviously not the archive. We have sort of made an argument why a black woman should be ungovernable. They have to prove a unique link to the archive to win this argument. The best evidence is the 1AC is not melancholy. They sort of script that onto the affirmative, which is a violent form of scripting. That is a dissent to the sort of model. Second, there's a turn to the best evidence because that assumes that we should never be able to talk about the history of blackness because they said that we always sort of historicize it and recreate this. That means that black women are never sort of be able to talk about this because it's problematic and turn to the evidence. The Freeburg evidence of the affirmative doesn't theorize slavery. Their ability to sort of characterize Morgan as an analysis of slavery is a sort of violent scripting that I mean above it. There's also homogenization to said this is in the context of Gordon, which is not the affirmative. Obviously, that Gordon sort of criticizes the way that we even engage in politics, so they homogenize all black scholarship, which is violent. They say resilient something. There's no link to this argument. It assumes that the 1AC had to overcome something. The 1AC is talking about how the way that Morgan wants to exist in the world.
We're going to take a little bit of prep before process. Let's try and Alright, stop right. That's 9 minutes remaining.
You good?
Yeah. You said 9 left, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Why is the critique a reason why the permutation must resolve because the AF equals anti-capitalism?
I don't think I understood your question. Or maybe
You make the claim that the AF is an anti-capitalist move which resolves the negatives links. Explain.
Yeah, so there's a few arguments there. We are making the argument that we are controlling the uniqueness of the debate. i.e. that black women's labor sustains and coheres civil society and is what birthed it. If that is true, that's what sustains capitalism. By black women being ungovernable, that sort of disrupts the system of capitalism. Hartman sort of does a pretty great analysis of this in her article when she talks about the way that sort of vagrancy laws always force black women to work, but being ungovernable mean that if they didn't want to go to work, they didn't have to. They could do what they want and sort of disrupt that form of capitalism.
I guess, and how do you maintain the process of ungovernable access for black women in this debate?
What do you mean the 1AC was that ungovernable act? I'm not
I guess,
sure what
why
else.
did you say the same lines she did about produce black women?
Yes,
at the
because
top of your
that's a sort
speech?
of understanding of the way that the world has sort of commanded black women to operate, and that's what the
Understanding for who?
what?
Understanding for who?
I said that is the world. That is the way that the world sort of commands black women to sort of engage in certain things.
Yeah,
I
I guess.
didn't say understanding.
Why did you say it?
What do you mean?
Why did you make that argument?
Because that is what the 1AC is about. So it was an overview of the affirmative.
Sure.
And it's sort of as an analysis of the way the world positions things always sort of requires black women to do more
Okay.
and more.
You said on case we make a critique of Foucault. Can you explain?
Yeah, so the first piece of James' evidence it sort of talks about the way that like Foucault operates and that sort of thing, and then the second portion of it talks about like queer reproductivity and futurity, and the sort of like I think the line from the evidence is like delete yourself, I think, and so that was the sort of argument that A is not what the affirmative is, and is B like problematic.
Okay.
Yeah, it says no future with quote delete yourself, you have no chance to win.
All right. How many permutations did you make on the critique?
So I made permutation do both. I made permutation do the app, and then the alternative, I made permutation you do you.
Okay.
Let me check.
No, I was asking.
No, that was that.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I guess why does the why does the 1NC paper over the AF? I guess your argument about melancholia, I'm just unclear.
Yeah, for sure,
what,
for sure. So
is
the
this
way
a
that
no
like
link argument?
I think it's I'm not sure if it's the best evidence or I think it's the best evidence. Sort of, you're describing melancholy in the context of like slavery and the way that people are always sort of positioned in like a position of like sort of sadness, melancholy, that sort of thing. Our argument is that the affirmative was not that sort of description of blackness. It was rather celebrating Morgan's ungovernability, and it's not like a sort of pessimistic understanding of like.
I guess why is that not the description of the present moment of slavery discoursing and how slave performances demand new rubrics, historical, personal, and political, that the bottom of that evidence talks about?
Because the app's not about slavery. Morgan didn't say that word once.
Okay. We have 9 minutes starting now.
Should we read this together? I'm sorry, you said where did we go?
stop cards. We have 343. There's just 2 cards. It's cool if I put them in the email chain.
Perfectly fine.
Alright, it'll be the framework flow, and then cap. Alright, those cards are signed.
Logan, will there be any substantial overviews anywhere?
There will be
Yes.
an overview on cap.
Uncap?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Those are entirely design system.
You know what, man? Which one is
It's
this?
on paper. Not this
This
one's
one's like way longer.
Yeah. I don't actually want to type it because of that.
faster than you would.
Make sure my Oh, I'm sorry. Case is under cap.
So you will be going to T cap case.
Yes. I'm not sure. Okay. You got it.
T cap case.
Good. We aren't going for the framework flow, but they misunderstood the argument. It's, we're not saying that we're requiring them to come to the state, but rather that the creative productive means of which they can effectively mobilize resistance. They concede a thesis question of the thing, which cuts back against any offense they had. That debate is game and nothing more than political theater. Just as the ballot cannot provide truth or solve impact claims, the one I see is unable to control the mass of how they perceive the affirmative, which is a reason why they don't get offense in the flow, and I'll do more of this on the K flow, but I'll answer their DAs, which they cross-plot here. The white shift DA. There's no definition or way to prove what the breakdown of a shift is. It also cuts back against them, because any shift or rearticulation of the AF means that they link, so there's no impact that can be applied. The criminalization DA, they say that this round isn't key and that there isn't there's no bright line, but we aren't saying that the framework is not a criminalization or a pathologization, is rather just a sort of a comparison of norms and testing of methods. It's not uniquely offensive for them. They say that we place a value on Morgan. We don't require her to reproduce via framework. We just say, and this isn't even warranted out. Yeah, they say, and the AF is the sort of reproduction, which, again, I'll get more to on the K. All right, go to cap. Exhaust the one I see. The affirmation of knowledge they seek to affirm is material violent manifestation. The age of the world of the picture is the world of the targeting system. Expansion of knowledge of the affirmative perpetuates the form of militarized knowledge production that sustained both the neoliberal academy and the military-industrial complex. Knowledge and information are a new marketplace, and the AF is the newest product. You should refuse to use the AF as a fuel for modernity and instead adopt a radical passivity towards their representation. This is more than just a rejection of the affirmative. It's a refusal to sustain the system that is premised on the alienation and social debt. They've conceded the uniqueness question on this debate. The colonial knowledge system they critique require the very active affirmatives to critique the sustain themselves. The one I see is keeping the academy alive rather than bringing about any real challenge or rearticulation. This is true about the debate itself too. Rather than challenge hegemonic structures, they occupy the same form of debate they attempt to criticize. They leave all the norms they critique intact, especially when they when they win. They will be used as an example of diversity of ideas and debates by policy schools to get more money and solidify the very institutional structures they claim to resist. It doesn't mean this means that means it's don't try or die for the alt. It means that you should air neg, especially in the 1AC when they point out these sort of debate norms about
about the travel and the shitty food and the lack of windows and these sort of articulations in the 2AC about how different policy schools will the articulation they use on the K of how that sort of reifies that sort of violence. That's sort of what we're saying about how they attempt to position themselves as something that disrupts that, which they don't. The ballot should evaluate form before content, refuse to mentally disconnect with the affirmative, what the affirmative says and what you know to be true, which is that the AFT has very little to change any of the violent things they describe. If we win this argument, it's a solvency takeout to the AFT, and because we have impact on the form of debate they uphold. You prioritize our impact, despite what the 2AC might have you believe. They are far more isolated from reality than we are. Voting AFT is complicit in the ever-expanding neoliberal control and knowledge production and paves over the material violence that allows for the convergence of this debate. Their claims to ethicality and knowledge production are overcoded by their relationship to structures that is required to make them coherent in the first place. The only ethical act is to refuse the domination of power itself. That looks like the alt, not the affirmative. And voting AFT requires a parasitic relationship between debater and the academy, which is a violent reproduction that manifests itself as a rehashing of previous radical forms of resistance that sustain the relationship. This can be contextualized about how you think about how Black Lives Matter was started as a sort of radical repositioning towards the state and a challenge to that, but now they're sold t-shirts and stickers. They have been commodified by capitalism, which is what we are critiquing, and the AFT only reinscribes. Voting AFT means you become part of the system that requires you to violently consume the content of the 1AC. This is especially true given 1AC cross-sects. Think back to their demand of governance in the 1AC, yet they still require you as a judge to make a value statement via the battle on whether or not the AFT should be given the right of governance or whether or not the AFT deserves to choose their own labor. This is exactly the type of parasitic relationship that the academy and the surround produces by putting those ethical pressures on you as a judge, which and especially given the fact that they don't have a solvency method outside of that, beyond the survival strat, which we've indicted as bad. The alternative is way more simple than the 2AC would have you believe, especially because they don't really have any offense on it at all in the 2AC. Capitalism is no longer material, but semiotic. The AFT's political energy, affect, and community form required to sustain neoliberalism. No longer do we focus on the productive labor of the worker, but predictive markets, communicative channels, and geographic nodes creating deterritorialized information in the affective spheres, which artificially and psychologically profit to become cold, hard production. Wall Street doesn't even need your labor anymore because Fox News doesn't need you to produce events. The digital nature of production means your psychic and community energy is enough to sustain the structure of neoliberalism. Absent that, these structures have no fuel, which is only what the AFT refeeds into. They concede that capitalism will inevitably collapse. Absent the affirmative means it's try or die, and maintaining the structures of capital lead to extinction and literally other impact they talk about. Robinson 14. Because the system of global crisis in one place tends to represent for the system historic moment of uncertainty which respond to distinct social class and force of a great flux. The system cannot meet the needs in millions of people in facing counter-hegemonic challenges. Global capitalism now couples to human natural history in a way that threatens to bring out six magnitude of massive violence, social control, unprotected, computerized wars, drones, bunker bus bombs, Star Wars, which is the fix of warfare to become normalized standards. Capitalism reaching its limit to expansion. Capitalism must continually expand or collapse. The spread of WMDs, the unprecedented militarization of social life and conflict across the globe makes it hard to imagine the system cannot come any stable political authority to assure to reproduction. Ultra-right-wing insurgent force seeks to infuse you actually political power with a capital organized mass space. It involves militarism, extreme masculation, homophobia, racism, mobilization, including the search for scapegoats such as immigrant workers and Muslims. Fascism invokes mystifying technologies involving race supremacy and xenophobia, embracing an idealized and mythical past. And theorizing ontologies of violence and identity is problematic because it allows for the sign economy to reformulate itself according to phallocentric logic of dominance. This allows your ideology to become co-opted and incorporated into semio-capitalism, which instead theorize and break down the logic of signs and symbolic exchange. Grace 2000. Ontology is problematized and multi theorization to analyze ontological assumptions. We have to assume the structure of values exchange. Sign value issues ontology is both essential and at the same time fluid. Pure identity opens possibility of rejection. Identity cannot be displaced or replaced by some form of transform, seduce a phallic identity code, regulate sign value in contemporary political economy of the West that codes consumption identity is a form of social control, absolute, but not in the way it can be reversed. The only possibility to challenge the level of logic of the system itself. Any other mode of transgression will be recaptured by the system, and we produce another market niche, another identity, another lifestyle. The character, there's no dialectic, but endless proliferation of identities is shifting value. Things come over, there's a market for frozen identity. I'm who I am, unproblematic, coexist with I can be anything I want. This permits the functioning of science to establish and perpetuate real discriminations of the order of power. The sort of the line by line debate, the perm and the link debate will be in the 1 and R, so I'm not going to answer that here. They, the double bind. They say that we effectively engage with capitalism, and we are blaming Morgan in this debate. We are not. There's no criminalization DA because you can cross-apply the answers I did above. We also aren't blaming because we are challenging their method of debate. They said the smile DA. They said positioning other issues as sort of being more important and to distract from the psychic violence of the act leads to that sort of turn and reinscription of psychic violence. We are not saying that. We are saying that there's a DA to their method. Even in a way, it can't really sort of spill over to the sort of solvency that they're saying. They said that speak from objective positioning is bad. We aren't speaking from an objective position. Rather, we are making these sort of structuring claims on how capitalism interacts with all these things, which means that you prefer the negative. They say we pave over and universalize violence with the Hartman Index. No, the Hartman Index are the James evidence that I'll get to on a case in a second. Don't paper over and universalize violence. Rather, they have a better ontological instruction on how that violence is theorized in the first place, which is something that they don't provide, which means you err at. The Freeburn and the Gordon evidence. I'll answer the case. So let's just go there now. The James evidence, extend the James evidence, being radical inside debate feeds in the system that tried to escape from. The neoliberal system, one of the vampiric aspects that co-ops and distorts attempt to radicalism. It co-ops and commodifies movements to the point that their app becomes nothing more than a corporate logo. It says that not only is neoliberalism unescapable, the process is part and parcel with neoliberalism itself. They fundamentally misunderstand the James evidence. The description of queer violence in James are still explanations of how radicality feeds back into that system and the sort of impact work I did above. They just because they didn't understand the evidence doesn't mean they get new 1AR answers, and you should have this, and you should mark this here as a sort of framing issue for a lot of their articulations. You should frame that through the many pieces on the flow that I don't have time to individually go to. The 2AC is hyper defensive about no new explanations because they don't understand it, or they think we're going to re-articulate it. This is all in our evidence and our explanations from the 1AC. Just because they didn't get it doesn't mean they get the 1AR to spin and get new answers. That also links back to the sort of DA they have about re-articulation in the first place. On case, they said that, yeah, they said debate, when they talk about debate being manipulative, rhetoricative, and the 1AC is a refusal of that, that just ties into what we are talking about when we say that you as a judge are forced to be into this position where you feel like you can make a change with the ballot. That is exactly what we are critiquing, and it is exactly an example of this sort of link that we are talking about. And in that regard, we don't link to any sort of psychic violence, DA. We simply have an explanation for that they don't.
Are you ready for process?
Yeah, sorry. This timer just exploded.
You said what?
Yeah, right.
Okay, what does it mean to refuse the AF?
To refuse the AF, like in the context of like what happens at the end of this round, or just like broadly?
In the context of this round?
I guess that means vote negative because of the sort of offense we have about why the sort of methodology of the AF is sort of problematic in the way that it's presented
What
as
is your
a sort
offense
of
against
change.
ungovernability?
Sorry, do you have like that in like a specific context, or
The
just
affirmative says ungovernability good. You said you have offense against the method. What's that offense?
Yeah, so exactly what I was just talking about these sort of ethical demands and like demands upon the judges to sort of affirm the AF in that case is sort of exactly what we're talking about how that sort of like turns the idea of ungovernability, because you still force governmentability via like a value decision on the ballot to sort of like vote AF.
So I guess my next question, you make this sort of argument that on the T vote that the affirmative is the same white shiftiness as the negative. What's the warrant for that to be true?
The argument I guess we're making here is that sort of any recharacterization that I guess in this debate that Josiah you would do is sort of like a link to that. Like, we're not saying white shiftiness is any articulation done by Morgan in this debate, because she's not a white person. But if you're white, like, I don't understand how that doesn't link to you.
You make the argument that debate is a game. How does it sort of tie in with your arguments about sustaining the way that capitalism operates?
The argument is not that debate is a game and that's the end point of it. It's argue that it's political theater, just in the sense that, like, we're saying the ballot doesn't provide the sort of emancipatory change that you're describing. Like, this sort of links back to the
I guess my
arguments
next
on
question
decay.
is, what is that sort of emancipatory change that the AF describes?
Well, sort of just the idea that voting AF can sort of lead to these different strategies and things that sort of subvert, like, when you talk about how the AF is able to subvert capitalism and, like, via the perm, and as well as, like, different sort of things about how the AF is able to sort of like get rid and like change these sort of material violence, like
in the 1AC when it's described as like Morgan doesn't have enough money or like traveling is a lot.
Okay,
Like
quick question about
the ballot doesn't change that.
Quick question about the criticism. The Robinson evidence seems to sort of indicate that capitalism causes extinction through like environmental integration and those other things. What is the link between the affirmative in this round and extinction?
It's like maintaining the structures of capitalism, which you definitely reify. Like that's sort of
walk
all the
me
link debate
through
that I've
Morgan
done.
reading the 1AC reifying capitalism,
Sure. Well, the link debate again will be in the 1 and R.
and I'm asking about it now.
But what that is basically about, the James evidence talks about how semio-cap is sort of like altering the train of labor from material putting work, exploitation of bodies to knowledge production.
Do you mind if I go to the bathroom before you want to know?
Yeah, we're gonna run.
No.
I'll just wait. I can wait.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna go downstairs and get some food, and I was told to get debaters orders.
Can I just get like a burger and fries?
Okay, from like Chick-fil-A or something, or anyone.
Yeah, that or the place next to it or whatever.
Okay. Okay, just, is there any
No, I don't.
specificities? Okay, no? Okay.
Just cheap. start prep. That's alright.
You say you're gonna start prep?
Yeah. Okay, if you can. Yeah.
Stop prep 249.
You said 249?
Yeah.
It's gonna be all on the K. Kind of straight down. This time we're not working.
This is links and verbs, right?
Yeah.
No new cards?
No. I might read the strict card from the 1NC if this time at the end. We'll see. I'm going to start with a permutation if that helps anyone. No. Group the permutation of the AF. This is the permutation. This is somewhat ridiculous given the links or an impact turn to the AF's method insofar as we have made a largely uncontested method argument about how the AF becomes an affective spectacularization which normalizes a parasitic feedback loop that makes the performance of resiliency a reinforcement of the necessity of the AF. That means voting AF requires a parasitic relationship between the judge and the performer. That judge needs to consume their content and then reproduce it through the academy. That production looks like everyone reading the Breathe AF now. It sucks up the radical potentiality and commoditizes it. Their radical anti-futurism will do the same thing. Now the UDU perm is really their only offense. The app produces a looking and public performance of trauma to assuage our past prejudices and justify globalist interventionism in the name of bettering third world others who cannot perform as well as they do, which implicates the ballot because pre-existing of experiences of black people within debate produces a fundamental understanding of debate which they weaponize in order to determine to develop a sort of bootstrap narrative of how debate operates insofar as they can give a narrative for the judge to affirm at the end with which I'll get into a little bit below. Now we don't talk about slavery argument is silly. They say their evidence says it 9 times in the document they send. A coherent theorization of the operationalization of the middle passage was your author's own career, which is a distancing disadd to their method, which because they use black scholarship when convenient in order to weaponize it against criticism, but foreclose the core tenets of that scholarship when convenient for a ballot, which disproves their radicality. Now the melancholia link is not a scripting. That's silly. It's a failure of on behalf of the affirmative to understand the link best. Talks about how for Hartman, slavery is neither resigned nor confused with the past, committed to an affective conception of history which solicits empathy through an assertion that time has shown no movement. This argument fundamentally goes uncontested and is really important because this concedes the ontology debate. The assertion that time has shown no movement promotes a feeling to the axiom transformed into a critical method which enshrines an authentic telos to redemptive devaluation of experience, or the refusal of the or inability to reckon with the true alterity of the past, which means we don't really need a Gordon card here to make this argument. We articulate. Okay, the articulation this card makes is really damning because it's a specific indite of their method, and it says that the move to understand history as atemporal is an inability to reconcile with the true alterity of the past, and supplants the ability for innovation, which is essential to develop new and better scholarship. Failure to innovate and bring new methods of archival process actively stifle creative potentiality for analysis, locking the archive out of history as an objective unit which can be made fully present, authenticated, and exposed. And that's Hartman's whole point, is that the archive erases certain certain histories because they conflict with Western narratives. Bringing those narratives into the light undermines the ability for the archive to tell coherent the story that undermines Black resistance. For them to say that we don't talk about the archive is a disassociation with either their own primary scholars' whole body of work or an understanding that the AFS method doesn't actually resolve anything. Rather, the demands specifically for the ballot no haters to be ungovernable or make more money from society either become a rearticulation of our argument that the Freiburg evidence says, and when it talks about how the colonial about how the AF becomes a colonial imposition which ignores the productive possibility of silence and secrets of the archive, which demand innovative scholarship and innovative endeavors, or they reproduce the James evidence when it talks about how power and visibility don't function in post-Fordist capitalism merely as repression but also a production, and that introduction to their scholarship becomes an affective economy, not liberating but rather recreating the resilient subject, presuming a Fanonian visual economy where black bodies become the property of white psyche, which is an independent disad to the affirmative. Also, the YC criticizes the process of allyship, but they ask for your ballot to do exactly the same thing. Imagine if they put a Pepsi logo at the end of the 1AC. Now, it is especially odd considering that Josiah reads the exact same narrative that was spoken in the 1AC, considering that he does not occupy that same positionality. Now, the argument then becomes that when they make an argument about how the AF's advocacy is something unique to experiencing those experiencing violences and essentially believing in the AF's method, that's not an answer to the link. We say that it becomes an affective spectacularization, and that process of radical anti-futurism will recreate a reproduction of everyone just reading the AF scholarship. Our argument becomes our argument is that I can't get these papers apart. Our argument becomes that when they make arguments about how criminalization means there's no we criminalize them because there's no bright line to when the AF's method is effective, and other teams will still read the same arguments. No, they teams like Harvard read the most effective argument to win debates, not because they invest in policy processes, not because they uniquely care about policy authors. No, they're investing in the most the fastest way to a ballot, and this AF serves to recreate that same purpose for teams like Harvard, who can just reinscribe the same move towards ballots before actionable value to debate. Can I have that card real quick? Okay. Also, the James 14 card on case. I'm going to extend that real quick. They've conceded that. Did you do that?
Yeah,
okay, no worries. Actually, go to the strict card. Liberalism overcodes the 1AC. The AF presumes an impossible relationship between semiotic radicalism and the public sphere. This results in a liberal humanism and turns the AF strict 14 spectacles up being ever proliferating in the public sphere, shows an exchange in average trauma, spectacles of suffering. There's a public discourse disclosing the injuries caused by governing and critical discourse, shed light on the structural inequity movements, exploited public recognition of the changing scope of intelligibility of virus, affective phenomena are co-opting of identitarian politics. These urge caution against the assumption that speaking out with radical politics can be separated from self-expression and neoliberal forms of governance. Academic debate has matched this capitalization on pain is necessary to politics, ethics, or community making. Mark the card of community.
You said at community making?
Yeah.
No. We have 9 minutes of prep. We will start that now. You laughing with the water. I need more, I'm sorry. Everybody good? Okay. Vote affirmative to endorse the wayward acts of the 1AC Morgan one-step ballot. They have not contested the uniqueness of the black women's labor producing coherent civil society which makes this an easy affirmative ballot for Morgan to resist governance. There's two net benefits that are conceded. First is the mutual aid of the affirmative. The wayward acts of ungovernability allow for black women to sort of create that sort of interconnected mutual aid between each other to help each other out. The second is the psychic and physical violence of the affirmative. They have no way to resolve, especially in the context of 1NC crossing when they indicate the case is a dissent. They can see the case is a dissent to the alternative and to the 1NC because they have no way to resolve for the impacts of the affirmative, which is why you should weigh the case against anything that they go for in the two. And our speaks is a pretty easy ballot. The only other argument they have here is the sort of judge argument about and the James evidence. But one, that sort of James evidence indicates that there is a criticism of futurism. They have not sort of isolated why the affirmative is a form of futurism, why it is bad. Our argument is that Morgan should be ungovernable in the future, and what that looks like can be decided by Morgan, but they should not be able to sort of criminalize her for that choice. They also said that they should sort of frame the new arguments, but our argument is just that the way that they have shifted in the debate proves that they want to actually get a new argument. I don't really have to make a lot of new arguments because the block was pretty not hot, and so I'll go to the K-flow. Top level, they consider the analysis that black women's labor will produce and sustain minority. That is the lifeblood of capital. They have no unique dissent to black women being ungovernable, which means that the affirmative is a prerequisite to their arguments and solves better because ungovernability disrupts capitalism, which is all of the top of the 2AC analysis that they have not answered. The second is permutation do both resolve all of these arguments. We have a few net benefits. First is the smile of this that was mishandled. Their argument for the strict evidence that they read indicates that the 1AC is a form of paying narratives and that it engages in a semiotic economy, and their best evidence indicates that melancholia is problematic. They have conceded the argument that means that the black women are never able to be vulnerable in spaces and talk about the way that they experience trauma or violence because they always sort of be co-opted by the sort of semiotics and that sort of thing, which means that black women are always forced to smile and smile and smile and produce more and more. The impact is this sort of psychological violence that we go to, psych violence impact and black suicide that they have not answered this argument is a net benefit permutation. The second, they conceded the Moen evidence in the entirety of the block about this sort of speaking, the value of speaking, the commodity, that becomes a net benefit. The speaking commodity allows for the system of value itself to be rough, so there is no answer to this argument. Why the affirmative can resolve for the signed economy, which also was the conceded analysis of the way that ungovernability collapses the signed economy because it refuses the tropes and scripts that are placed on new black women in the context of the real world and debate, which proves their sort of argument. The next argument they have is this sort of top level how we should exhaust the 1NC. What does it mean to exhaust black women in these spaces? I would say that it's the 1NC, and they're sort of requiring Morgan to engage in topical action or indifferent action because her method always sort of sustains capitalism. But I'll get that a little bit lower on the criminalization. They say that Morgan keeps the academy alive, but all the criminalization they say because they say that sort of engaging in this form of debate sustains the academy. But our argument is that Morgan being in debate doesn't sustain it. There are lots of other alternative constants to this, like professors publishing papers, other debates that go on. There's no sort of bright line, and for them to say that this affirmative is a sort of key internal link to that is the sort of same argument that I'm making on framework. That they have no bright line to sort of what sustains the academy, what it doesn't. But they use that to criminalize Morgan and the 1AC, which is problematic because they always say this is what sustains the academy. This is the key thing. This is the problematic, which is violent. Always blames the black woman for these problems. They say that we don't sort of disrupt that we don't disrupt debate. Our argument that not really we have to disrupt debate. The Morgan wants about it because they also have conceded the sort of crucial framing question that there should not be a difference between debate in the outside world that they cannot resolve with the black woman is sort of scripted onto Morgan outside of these spaces and in these spaces, which is sort of a crucial framing criticism for question for the criticism. I'll do the ballot debate here. But first, she wants that ballot, so she should get it. They have no sort of dissent this outside of the governability, but that sort of judge hierarchy is inevitable even in policy debate. There's always some sort of alternate cause that they answer. And third, that's sort of they sort of engage in that sort of the same sort of affect, which is a 2AC argument. There's no sort of right line of what the affect of the affirmative is versus the affect of the 1 and C. That means that the judges will always sort of have to engage in some sort of affective intervention, which doesn't sort of engage in that sort of governability. And most of the links that they go for are questions of co-option. But our argument since the beginning has been that co-option is inevitable. That governability should be resisted. It should be affirmed. And that is a good thing. And second, we will also make the argument that co-option is good because of the way that it allows black women to get the ballot. That's a sort of framing of the 1AC that Morgan wants that ballot, she should get it. And if that means that it's commodified and Morgan wants it, she should get it. There's no sort of visit to that. That also looks like in the real world when they sort of try to criminalize the 1AC is causing extinction through environmental degradation. That is like saying that because Rihanna creates music of the 1AC that the CDs that are produced by the third one which leads to extinction, that criminalizes black women, but black women should be able to get their money, which is our sort of argument about how co-option is good. And so there's no sort of offense. And the example that they give is Black Lives Matter, which was started by 3 black women, which means that they sort of criminalize those black women for they sort of criminalize the black women who engage in Black Lives Matter for sort of making money off of that movement, which means that black women black people would always be sort of poor. This isn't the alternative. This is sort of let it die. But what does it look to look like to exhaust the 1AC or sort of let the 1AC die or refuse the 1AC? What does it look like to refuse black women and their ungovernability in these spaces? Which proves our sort of argument. The next argument is that they say that capitalism collapses outside of the affirmative, which sort of proves our criminalization argument. How they blame the 1AC for that. This is the same sort of logic of the Robinson evidence. So you can crossify that disidea there. So they sort of blame the destruction of the environment and on the affirmative, which is problematic. And the next piece of evidence is grace evidence. But first, the affirmative never made an ontology claim. Rather, the affirmative is rather about para-ontology by the way that there is social life within social death. They never, and that's the sort of mutual aid networks of the affirmative that has been present since the 1AC. There's also no sort of impact to this argument, so you should not vote on it. And the next argument they have is that they answer the smile this because they've answered the method of the affirmative. They not ask yourself, when did the 2NC or the 1NR ever make any arguments about ungovernability being bad? All of it was sort of the way that we present ourselves as protagonist or something. But our argument has always been that is good. They say permutation, group the permutations. You should not group the permutations. Especially in the context of when they say that the sort of spectacularization of the affirmative is the same thing as the Breathe Act last year. These are clearly blocks that were written against a different black women's affirmative, and which is problematic about the way that they sort of recycle these things. It's to sort of prove our argument. You should a permutation do, but they have no offense against it in this context, and we sort of impact here all of their notions of the best evidence and that sort of thing. And I impact here the strict evidence, and so it resolves this. Even if you don't think it's true, permutation you resolves all this offense. There's not a good answer to it in the block.
Okay. Please. 249. Sorry now.
Say what about blocks. That's not this is the answer to that. Because this is going to be
it'll be the egg flow, and then probably just put like the case flow at the bottom. Okay, it's
Oh, sorry.
Is everyone good?
On the top level of the K, they have conceded an impact to the method and deployment of their wrath, which means you only need we only need to win a little bit of defense to mitigate their offense, which means that you vote neg. First off, also on the top, first we're going to concede the alt as a test of competition. We're going for it as a DA means McKittrick's description of anti-black violence about being locked in and inevitable is magnified by James argued about affective spectacularization, which normalizes the parasitic feedback loop made the performance of resiliency reinforcement necessity of the app. Voting app requires a parasitic relationship between judge and performer. The judge needs to consume the content and then reproduce it through the academy. This is offense in the block that is not addressed properly. They do not have any defense on the question of how their app is deployed. When we say that it requires a parasitic relationship between that, the 1AC positions itself as a form of a radical form of resistance that sustains that sort of relationship, and voting app only means that you become a part of the system that reinscribes the sort of violence and harms of cross-sex. Think back to the 1AC cross-sex when they talk about they demand on governance but still require the judges to make a sort of value statement on the whether or not the ballot should be given and whether or not the app deserves to choose their own way. But it's a type of parasitic affective relationship that forces you as a judge to engage on this level. I'll answer the smile DA here because it's fundamentally backwards. They are making a claim about the root cause inevitability of the smile DA within debate. That link turns the DA because the performance of that resiliency is a reinforcement of the necessity of the app. This sort of description of that relationship is not something you should reinscribe or reinforce because it leads to the sort of reification of the violence of capitalism writ large. The affirmation of knowledge they seek has material violent manifestations. The age of the world picture is a world targeting system. Expansion of that knowledge perpetuates militarized knowledge production that sustains both the neoliberal academy and military-industrial conflicts. That knowledge and information are a new marketplace, and the app is just simply a reification of the newest product. You should refute. They've conceded a uniqueness question that the knowledge systems they critique require the act of the affirmative to sustain itself. The 1AC keeps the academy alive rather than bringing about any real challenge or re-articulation. The 1AR tries to sort of impact turn this Their argument in the 1AR about how it's not a question of disruption and that because there's not a difference between the debate and the real world are just fundamentally false. In this specific space, which is known as the sort of debate space as it of itself, that requires a sort of judgment based on the sort of knowledge that is produced in the space from the neg or the app, still means that there is a fundamental difference in the way that this is sort of deployed. You wouldn't these sort of demands at the top of the 1AC and the performance of the 1AC in outside of this sort of academic space wouldn't have the sort of same effect or be deployed in that same way to be reified. But that's exactly sort of what we're critiquing, the fact that their deployment of that is bad. The 1AC also double turns itself. They say at the top that we have conceded that the labor of black women is the root cause of capitalism, but then later on the flow they say that co-option is good because the labor of black women should be used to get ballots because ballots are a good thing. That is definitely a double turn because they are saying that the labor that creates those violences of capitalism, which they say are also bad, recreate that. That definitely means that you should just vote neg on presumption. Because they don't have any. That is definitely a double turn to the thesis of both the affirmative and the impacts of the K. That definitely means that also is a reason that we kick the alt so they don't get a perm, but that is also any sort of massive level indict about why they don't get the app doesn't have any sort of method of solvency in that regard. The James the James evidence, we are going to extend as an independent dissent that semiocap altered the terrain of labor material, putting to work and exploitation of the bodies. The economic growth without job creation, the production process goes, more money goes into the research and invention than the creation process, which deregulates economies of desire and affect as a dominant mode of exchange. This basically means that the sort of methodology of the app is just to reinscribe this sort of exchange mechanism. They say.
Do you want me to just read it straight down from the ballot? Go down.
The argument Morgan wants about lacks a warrant and why they should get it because now the links are DA to the app. The parentology argument is brand new in the 1 era. Yes, they make ontology claims in the very last line of their first card. It says that mythification of the replacement of history with the surrogate ideology. They also concede all of our explanation of Hartman, which is definitely a sort of impact turn to that. The commodification DA, they conceded that they weaponized the scholarship of black women in order to win the ballots, destroying the potential of the 1AC. That just feeds in the sort of double bind
They
negative
bastardized
presumption.
Hartman in order to win ballots, kicking out of different.
They bastardized Hartman, and they sort of only deploy Hartman as their author in ways that support them. They don't incorporate the full deployment of their strategy. They say that Hartman doesn't.
We're not holding them to all of her scholarship, but rather they do not have a coherent theory.
They don't have a coherent theory of the parts of Hartman where they defend or not defend, and that inherently means that our conceded ontology claims are definitely where you should sort of prefer in the AF. The double bind argument is really important because it also turns case. They say that mutual engagement through communal engagement through spaces like this are key to avoid the sort of psychic violence that they talk about. But the sort of double bind of black women producing is good, but then that immediately reproduces the violence of capitalism that caused the sort of material harms like not having enough money or getting a job because of the need to debate to get money. Sort of just is a reason why the AF writ large cannot solve, and a reason you should just vote neg on presumption.
You have 4 or 5.
If Vita stands there in the window the whole tour, I'm not gonna move it.
Okay. Is everyone good? Yeah, okay, cool. Produce black women, work harder, black women, solve this problem, black women, create, black women, smile, black women, don't cry, black women, get a job, black women, be grateful, love me, black women, trust me, black women. These are the demands that the world throws at black women. Black women are told continuously to labor and produce for others. They are told to smile and be grateful about it because she has been given so much. Every one of these gifts that she has been given is a trade-off of something else in her life. Every one of these gifts in hindsight is actually malice, and what is important that black women refuses to labor and accept these gifts. And instead, we only labor for what we want and what we need to survive on. The one I see is a way for me to be ungoverned and produce labor how I see fit and get what I want out of it. And I just go for the same motions of having to produce labor for the resolution and not get anything out of it except for physical and psychological violence. They have conceded all of case in the 2 and R. There's no reason you should vote for them. You can cross-apply the labor DA here. They force black women to always have to produce more for the sake of society or equal to democratic society through deliberation. That society never gets better for them and depletes black women's energy when they can't engage in the state or the proper debate demands and exhaustion and suicide. They are making more labor in the debate and they're making labor more in this debate. That proves that black women's labor is bad. And the first argument that you can vote that the neg is not disproven is the fact that black women have always continue to shape the world around them, and that their labor and production and that their labor and the production is uniquely bad because it causes black women to experience physical and psychological pain. And they always told, hey, black women, don't cry, just smile. And the one I see is the way the black women can be free of that, and they put demands on the world. And the second argument that you can vote on today has not disproven the fact they're disproven why my wayward acts through the one I see is uniquely bad for the debate speech, which means you can default to the ungovernability of the app. And the last thing that you're going to vote on is the mutual aid that the app creates within the space for the black woman. It's the debate space for the black woman. She's going to which allows the black women to be able to collaborate and help one another out. And on the role of the ballot is to give me the ballot. It's to embrace the waywardness and the ungovernability of the app. It is to embrace the fact that black women cannot and should not be forced to be governed. I want the ballot not because I am tax paid, because I am here and I am producing and laboring this whole round. Now I want something in return for my labor. For the next even question why I want the ballot is problematic. It's like, why would a black woman ever want the ballot after labor and assume that I do not want to be paid for working? In addition, what does that sound like when a black woman is to labor and never get anything from it? And on the mutual aid, they conceded all the mutual aid. Mutual aid falls to the impact of the 1AC because mutual aid allows black women to now rely on one another to help each other out, and black women are now collaborating with one another so that they are good. Black women are now relying on one another to help each other out. And on co-option, we think co-option is good. It gets me the ballot faster, and co-option is inevitable. And when they and on the double turn, our top level claim of the app is that black women should be able to labor for themselves whenever they please. So if three black women from the Black Lives Matter movement want to labor off of their if they want to profit off of their labor because they feel that they can do so, that is their totally their right because they are ungovernable. And cool, you can go into the K. On the smile, black women just said they have totally conceded in this. They prioritize value and competition over the emotional well-being of a black woman. I should never be forced into a conversation or relationship with people that are violent because of the emotional distress. They are literally saying, sorry, black women, you opened up about your struggle. Just smile though, because we have a better way that should include you. And on the criminalization, Hartman says that with the law designated reforms of life created by young black women, this whole flow is nothing. This whole flow is just another instance of how the world tries to criminalize black women for what they do. In the case, they're criminalizing me for being able to decide to be ungovernable. Hartman describes how the law, aka we've seen examples of criminalization throughout this debate, how they link it to the criminalization is that, one, when they talk about how the 1AC sustains the academy, two, when they talk about how the 1AC causes the collapse of capitalism, which leads to extinction, and three, on the way that they criminalize the way that I use Hartman within my 1AC, and then four, on the way they criminalize black women who want to make money off their labor, aka the Black Lives Matter movement. Do you have a thing that you're talking about that you're going to hand me?
Yeah. This is like more. There's just one. You can just read from there on.
Okay, and the judge argument. They conceded the judge hierarchy is inevitable and that there will obviously some form of effective attachment regardless. And I'll enter their double term here. They mishandled the uniqueness claims they are making black women birth and produce a civil society, saying that there is good for black women to get their ballot or make money does not double turn because it assumes that they cannot be ungoverned how they choose, which is they're linked to criminalization arguments that they pick or choose are affirmative to isolate a black woman being prevented from that. And they saying that they get money they should then saying that they should get the money that is criminalization. conversation. Don't vote negative presumption. There's only risk that the affirmative is good, and there is a case to the DA and the status quo in the K, and they have conceded the moat evidence that indicates the speaking commonality ruptures the silent economy and the way that the value is conceptualized, which is the reason why the affirmative is net better.
Should also insert the argument about how they say that we, quote, bastardize Hartman for ballots.
Yeah, I did that.
Oh, okay. Then they said ontology.
We make no ontology claims within the 1AC, so none of their ontology arguments link to us.
There wasn't like an explanation of that in the two and R rather.
And they had no explanation of it between 2 and R, so this should not go into the way you consider your ballot.
Yeah. So you just frame the ballot to the criminalization decide and Smile decide that they never allow black women to sort of talk about
Yeah.
the way
Okay.
they
And you should frame your ballot through the criminalization dissad and the smile dissad, which they conceded throughout this debate, about how they criminalize black women in the debate space and how they never allow black women to be vulnerable within the debate space because they say, hey, your 1AC is not good enough and we have an alternative. And that's my time. I thought you told Vita you were. What you told Vita that she wasn't from.
I literally just came, so I didn't get anything. And by the time I came, he came and told me actually was.
I have a feeling you better should look at Gamble.
Yeah, people's good. I did one health.
I literally just walked up. I walked up and I said, "What species?" She said, "You were on the most quiet."
Yeah, it's. Who's the two? Let's start with your side.
decision. Oh, I'm the only one here. The other judges are not here.
Are you okay with this order? Are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Alright, so we'll go to
So, congratulations to both teams to making it to the quarterfinals of JV Nationals. The decision is a 2-1 for the affirmative.
I sat. I'm not surprised that this is a 2-1 or that I sat. I think that the affirmative strategy at the end of the debate isn't really dealing with what the criticism is saying. I think that some of your arguments are treating it as just like it's a regular capitalism criticism that's saying that you lead to extinction and that capitalism accumulates and that's necessarily bad. I don't think that there's, besides, which I'll get to in a little bit, the uniqueness of the co-option arguments, I don't think that there's necessarily a good argument, and I had this thought thinking about it in the 1AR, right? They have these different articulations of what happens when white people or different people listen to the kind of performance that's happening in the 1AC, and what happens when we try to articulate that. And I think about what's happening in the debate, and I think a real problem that I have with the affirmative is I lose Morgan's voice throughout the debate, right? You give a beautiful 1AC, you ask some questions in the 1NC, and then it's like you're gone from the rest of the debate. And Josiah is giving all of this explanation and talking about what it means for you, and I start thinking that in the context of their arguments, right, and what that means for their co-option and the kind of accumulation arguments that they're talking about, and I see the affirmative changing in the 2AC and the 1AR, and then when I see the difference between the 1AR and the 2AR, I think there's a substantial difference between the explanation of some of the things. That really makes me think that that is that kind of accumulation that's happening, and that kind of ability makes it turns the entirety of the affirmative and implicates the ability for you to solve, or implicates the ability for there to not be that possession that's happening. So even though you have stood up there and I agree with everything that you've said, your call for the ballot and the way that that kind of gets co-opted makes it difficult for me to vote affirmative in this debate. I also kind of agree with the double turn argument. I definitely think the 1AR double turned yourself. And I think that the 2AR needed to spend a lot more time here. I had a really hard time understanding you in the 2AR when you were answering this argument, because you're just reading off Josiah's laptop really quickly. And I think that you need to make a much clearer explanation as to why that's not true, and articulate what side of the double bind you're going to pick, or what you mean, and really articulate some of your uniqueness evidence. So I think that the extra time in the 2AR could have really been spent there and helped get my ballot in this debate.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I get this sort of co-option argument, and this sort of losing the affirmative, but I maybe they make this argument, but I don't see them making this argument in the context of the affirmative is lost in terms, you know what I mean?
I think they're making this argument throughout the debate when they're talking about you giving that overview in the top of the 2AC and that articulation. Do I think they're great about it? No. But I think that the link arguments are there, and I think that they could do a much better job, which is why I'm not surprised that I sat in this debate.
Yeah, I come really close to end up voting negative in this debate. I think that there are definitely shifts that take place throughout the debate in terms of what the F does and what it means. I think that the way that you articulate your scholarship to get out of links is being disingenuous to the scholarship that being used. You're like, when do we talk about slaves? And like your evidence specifically, like the modern evidence you read talks about the slaves. You say we don't make any ontology claims, but then there are like what seemingly are ontology claims within your evidence that they're creating specific links to that you're just like no, we don't want to advocate that stuff anymore. And they spend more time explaining why it applies to you than you do explaining why it doesn't apply to you in the earlier portions of the debate. And so I think that you need to actually grapple with that. Otherwise, their link arguments are sort of showing how you're not creating some sort of new positive imagination or any sort of survival or anything that would do besides a form of co-optation that gets lost in the system of semi-capitalism that wouldn't produce any sort of like positive sort of impacts. And I think you need to grapple with those indices better. I think my major problem for why I end up voting affirmative is I think that the 2&R is too all over the place, doesn't collapse down to offense, and doesn't get around to sort of extending impacts to your overall argument because you spend so much time going for, well, this is just presumption. And so it's like they might not be able to solve, they might not be able to create a better new world, but I don't understand for why I should be the one to then govern Morgan and say that she was not good enough in this individual instance in order to be able to be like, let me reject Morgan's existence. If this is what she wants, why shouldn't she get what she wants, right? In earlier portions of the debate, you say that this externalizes violence to other women who aren't able to get up into like the debate spaces to talk, and it militarizes to the third world in terms of women who can't be resilient there. And so then you could be like, to just be like, well, now I've been able to, make myself feel better because I've been able to give a black woman what they want. That comes at the cost of all the other black women who aren't able to appear before me in this space for me to be able to do that, who aren't able to be resilient. And so I think the negative is right, that the smile just said is almost backwards. They're not asking you to do more work or do better work. They're in fact saying like the type of just essentially don't work more or less. And so it's not that it's not saying that you have instead of cry that you should smile, but that you're just like, give me what I want that allows me to smile today. It's what punishes all the other black women who aren't able to smile and are forced to just sort of grin and bear it as they get lost into that system of capital. All of that sort of impact analysis needs to be given, be given to me in that 2&R, and it's there in the block. And I don't think, and it's answered a little bit in the 1AR, but not so much again in the 2AR. But it comes back to me the question that I grapple with in terms of like, well, why shouldn't I, give Morgan what she wants in this individual debate? What is the, impact to it? And just presumption is not enough to get me to be able to, vote for you. If it was a policy app, I could be like, okay, well, I think that you've done a good enough job, like, minimizing impacts, creating solvency questions, creating double bias and things like that. That I'm like, it probably doesn't do much. But the one thing that I do know is that Morgan's asked for this ballot, says that it'll be able to alleviate some of the psychological violence experience within debate for her. Why shouldn't I then, engage in that act? And if you're not extending an alternative or extending impact clearly in relationship to it, it's difficult to give me something to like then weigh against that form of existence. But that's the missing component within this individual 2&R.
Yeah.
And I think that if you think I'm wrong about my interpretation about the way in which the Moden evidence comes down, or the way in which like your Hartman evidence read in terms of being not about ontology but about parent-ontology, I think that the 2AR especially needs to spend more time hashing that out in the world and really extend the links. I think that that's one of the places in like the middle portion of the debate in the 2AC 1AR that it's worth slowing down, opposed to just being like, not our Hartman, move on, and be like, well, they just make a form of conflation. It's like, it seems like you seem to be more disingenuous and more conflating different scholarships and picking and choosing than their reading, which I think creates a level of insincerity that might not be right on, but when I look at the snippets of evidence that they're pointing to, it seems to flow in their direction. So I think slowing down there and actually explaining it would be useful.
So really quick question, I guess, to all three judges, since it was kind of brought up. Do you think the decision to kick the alternative was the right one, or do you think in this debate we should have just kept with it and been able to use it to sort of frame against, like you were saying about how there's no sort of other framework?
Yeah, for me it doesn't seem like they had much offense against the alt, so I'm always confused when neg teams kick their alt just to go for the presumption argument when there's not much offense that isn't tied to the offense that they already have in the debate. So then why not go ahead and try and be able to resolve some of those impacts? But I don't think you necessarily need to do that to get my ballot if you just did sort of a better impact extension and you went to the indites of like the way in which they deploy their scholarship, earlier in that 2&R. Those would be, the other ways you get it if you still wanted to kick the alt and not deal with the perps.
Right. Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to stop.